Welcome, my name is Robert, and in today's video, I'm going to cover Active Directory basics on the Tryhackme platform as I continue to study for the CompTIA Pentest Plus certification. This room is rated at 30 minutes and easy. It's a free room, so I'll link to it in the description of this video, along with some timestamps to help you easily navigate the video. Without further ado, I'm going to jump into Task 1, Introduction. Microsoft's Active Directory is the backbone of the corporate world. It simplifies the management of devices and users within a corporate environment. In this room, we'll take a deep dive into the essential components of Active Directory. Room objectives. In this room, we will learn about Active Directory and we will become familiar with the following topics: what Active Directory is, what an Active Directory domain is, what components go into Active Directory domain, force and domain trust, and much more. Room prerequisites. General familiarity with Windows. Check the Windows Fundamentals module for more information on this. Answer the questions below. Click and continue learning. This is a read check. I'm just going to hit it. Then I'm move on to Task 2, Windows Domains. Picture yourself administering a small business network with only 5 computers and 5 employees. In such a tiny network, you will probably be able to configure each computer separately without a problem. You will manually log into each computer, create users for whoever will use them, and make specific configurations for each employee's accounts. If a user's computer stops working, you will probably go to their place and fix the computer on site. While this sounds like a very relaxed lifestyle, let's suppose your business suddenly grows and now has 157 computers and 300 different users located across 4 different offices. Would you still be able to manage each computer as a separate entity, manually configuring policies for each of the users across the network and provide on-site support for everyone? The answer is most likely no. To overcome these limitations, we can use a Windows domain. Simply put, a Windows domain is a group of users and computers under the administration of a given business. The main idea behind a domain is to centralize the administration of common components of a Windows computer network in a single repository called Active Directory, AD. The server that runs the Active Directory services is known as the Domain Controller, DC. The main advantages of having a configured Windows domain are centralized identity management, all users across the network can be configured from Active Directory with minimum effort, and managing security policies. You can configure security policies directly from Active Directory and apply them to users and computers across the network as needed. A real-world example. If this sounds a bit confusing, chances are that you've already interacted with a Windows domain at some point in your school, university, or work. In school, university networks, you will have been provided with a username and password that you can use at any of the computers available on campus. Your credentials are valid for all the machines because whenever you input them on a machine, it will forward the authentication process back to Active Directory where your credentials will be checked. Thanks to Active Directory, your credentials don't need to exist in each machine and are available throughout the network. Active Directory is also the component that allows your school or university to restrict you from accessing the control panel on your school or university machines. Policies will usually be deployed throughout the network so you don't have administrative privileges over those computers. Welcome to THM Inc. During this task, we'll assume the role of the new IT admin at THM Inc. As our first task, we have been asked to review the current domain thm.local and do some additional configurations. You will have administrative credentials over a pre-configured domain controller DC to do the tasks. Be sure to click the Start Machine button below now, as you'll be using the same machine for all tasks. This should open a machine in your browser. Should you prefer to connect to it via RDP, you can use the following credentials. I am going to connect RDP. I'm going to use my own box. They do give you an attack box and split screen. You can use this. I'm going to start the machine and I'm going to exit split screen view. And I'm going to connect with an RDP session in just a moment. First, I'm going to answer these questions. Answer the questions below. In a Windows domain, credentials are stored in a centralized repository called Active Directory, and the answer is right here. So I'm just going to Control-C, grab it, throw it in, check. Next question. The server in charge of running Active Directory services is called, and that answer is right here. That is a domain controller. Put that in and check it. And I'm on to Task 2, Active Directory. The core of any Windows domain is the Active Directory Domain Service, ADDS. This service acts as a catalog that holds the information of all of the objects that exist on your network. Amongst the many objects supported by AD, we have users, groups, machines, printers, shares, and many others. Let's look at some of them. Users. Users are one of the most common object types in Active Directory. Users are one of the objects known as security principals, meaning that they can be authenticated by the domain and can be assigned privileges over resources like files or printers. You could say that a security principal is an object that can act upon resources in the network. Users can be used to represent two types of entities. People, users will generally represent persons in your organization that need access to the network like employees, and services. You can also define users to be used by services like IAS or MS SQL. Every single service requires a user to run, but service users are different from regular users as they will only have the privileges needed to run the specific service. Machines. Machines are another type of object within Active Directory. For every computer that joins the Active Directory domain, a machine object will be created. Machines are also considered security principals and are assigned an account just as a regular user. This account has somewhat limited rights within the domain itself. The machine account themselves are local administrators on the assigned computer. They are generally not supposed to be accessed by anyone except for the computer itself. But as with any other account, if you have the password, you can use it to log in. Note, machine account passwords are automatically rotated out and are generally comprised of 120 random characters. Identifying machine accounts is relatively easy. They follow a specific naming schema. The machine account name is the computer's name followed by a $sign. For example, a machine named DC01 will have a machine account called DC01 $sign. Security groups. If you are familiar with Windows, you probably know that you can define user groups to assign access rights to files or other resources to entire groups instead of single users. This allows for better manageability as you can add users to an existing group and they will automatically inherit all the group's privileges. Security groups are also considered security principals and therefore can have privileges over resources on the network. Groups can have both users and machines as members. If needed, groups can include other groups as well. Several groups are created by default in a domain that can be used to grant specific privileges to users. As an example, here are some of the most important groups in a domain. And we've got domain admins. Users of this group have administrative privileges over the entire domain. By default, they can administer any computer on the domain, including the DCs. Server operators. Users in this group can administer domain controllers. They cannot change any administrative group memberships. Backup operators. Users in this group are allowed to access any file, ignoring their permissions. They are used to perform backups of data on computers. Account operators. Users in this group can create or modify other accounts in the domain. Domain users include all existing user accounts in the domain. Domain computers includes all existing computers in the domain. And domain controllers includes all existing DCs in the domain. You can obtain a complete list of the default security groups from Microsoft's documentation. And then we move on to Active Directory users and computers. To configure users, groups, or machines in Active Directory, we need to log into the domain controller and run Active Directory users and computers from the Start menu. So at this point, I'm going to jump out of full screen, open up my terminal, connect to my Tryhackme VPN, open up another terminal window with Control-Shift-E, and I started a directory with some notes, so I'm going to cd into Documents, Active Directory Basics, and I'm going to connect to our lab here using FreeRDP. If you need help setting that up, I did do a video on it, and I'll link to that in the description of the video. So I need to go grab the IP address here. And I've already got administrator password 321 from a previous lab. It looks like they use those credentials often in these labs. So I'll do that. Get connected, hit Control-Shift-O to open another terminal window. Minimize that. Just get myself set up a little bit here. And I wanted to open up Active Directory. Users and computers. Now that I have that open, let's continue on. This will open up a window where you can see the hierarchy of users, computers, and groups that exist in the domain. These objects are organized in organizational units, OUs, which are container objects that allow you to classify users and machines. OUs are mainly used to define sets of users with similar policying requirements. The people in the sales department of your organization are likely to have a different set of policies applied than the people in IT, for example. Keep in mind that a user can only be part of a single OU at a time. Checking our machine, we can see that there is already an OU called THM with 5 child OUs for the IT, management, marketing, R&D, and sales departments. It's very typical to see the OUs mimic the business's structure, as it allows for efficiency deploying baseline policies that apply to entire departments. Remember that while this would be the expected model most of the time, you can define OUs arbitrarily. Feel free to right-click on the THM OU and create a new OU under it called Students just for the fun of it. So if I click on THM, right-click, go to New, Organizational Unit, I can add Students. And it's got a box check to protect from accidental deletion. I'll hit OK. And I've added that. If you open any OUs, you can see the users they contain and perform simple tasks like creating, deleting, or modifying them as needed. You can also reset passwords if needed, pretty helpful for the help desk. So if I click on sales, I can see people, I can right click on them, I can reset the password. You probably noticed already that there are other default containers apart from the THM OU. These containers are created by Windows automatically and contain the following. Built-in contains default groups available to any Windows host. Computers, any machine joining the network will be put here by default. You can move them if needed. Domain controllers, default OU that contains DCs in your network. Users, default users and groups that apply to a domain-wide context. Managed service accounts, holds accounts used by services in your Windows domain. So those are all right here, built-in computers, domain controllers, etc. Security groups versus OUs. You are probably wondering why we have both groups and OUs. While both are used to classify users and computers, their purposes are entirely different. OUs are handy for applying policies to users and computers, which includes specific configurations that pertain to sets of users depending on their particular role in the enterprise. Remember, a user can cover a single OU at a time, as it wouldn't make sense to apply 2 different sets of policies to a single user. And security groups, on the other hand, are used to grant permissions over resources. For example, you will use groups if you want to allow some users to access a shared folder or a network printer. A user can be part of many groups, which is needed to grant access to multiple resources. Answer the questions below. Which group normally administrates all computers and resources in a domain? And this was right here, domain admins. So I'm going to copy that and put it in. Check it. Next question. What would be the name of the machine account associated with a machine named TomPC? And for that, we just scroll up. It says right here that it'll have a $sign at the end. So it's going to be TomPC $sign. Next question. Suppose our company creates a new department for quality assurance. What type of container should we use to group all quality assurance users so that the policies can be applied consistently to them? And that, we go over that right here with OUs applying policies, so that's going to be organizational units. And it looks like my RDP session just crashed, so I'm going to reconnect that really quick. And I'll move on to task 4, managing users in AD. Your first task as the new domain administrator is to check the existing AD OUs and users, as some recent changes have happened to the business. You have been given the following organizational chart and are expected to make changes to the AD to match it. We've got management, marketing, sales, IT, deleting extra OUs and users. The first thing you should notice is that there is an additional department OU and your current AD configuration that doesn't appear in the chart. We have been told that it was closed due to budget cuts and should be removed from the domain. If you try to right click and delete the OU, you will get the following error. So if I go to research and development or students, both of these are extras that I have, and I try to delete it, say yes, I get that error. By default, OUs are protected against accidental deletion. To delete the OU, we will need to enable the advanced features in the View menu. Okay, so I'm going to go to View and enable advanced features. Go back to THM. And now that I've enabled that, this will now show some additional containers and enable you to disable the accidental deletion protection. To do so, right-click on the OU and go to Properties. You will find a checkbox in the Object tab to disable the protection. So now if I navigate to, let's do Students first, I right-click on it, go to Properties, I have the Object tab, and I can uncheck this box and apply it, hit OK. Now I'm going to do the same for Research and Development. Just going to right-click on it, go to Properties, Object tab, uncheck Protect Object from Accidental Deletion, apply, hit OK. And now I should be able to remove these. Be sure to uncheck the box and try deleting the OU again. You will be prompted to confirm that you want to delete the OU, and as a result, any users or groups or OUs under it will be deleted. So I'm going to hit delete. Yes. Let's say I'm going to check this so it doesn't say it again. And students, I'm going to delete that one as well. After deleting the extra OU, you should notice that for some of the departments, the users in the AD don't match the ones in the organizational chart. Create and delete users as needed to match them. So now I need to match our organizational chart here, which in management, I've got Daniel. For IT, I've got Philip, Mary, Claire. In marketing, I've got Mark. And in sales, I've got Sophie, Thomas, Christine, and Robert are extra. So I just hold Shift to select both. I can right click and delete, or I can just hit the red X here. Are you sure you want to delete? Yes. And now our organizational chart should be aligned. And moving on to delegation. What was that? One of the nice things you can do in an AD is to give specific users some control over some OUs. This process is known as delegation and allows you to grant users specific privileges to perform advanced tasks on OUs without needing a domain administrator to step in. One of the most common use cases for this is granting IT support the privileges to reset other low-privilege users' passwords. According to the organizational chart, Philip is in charge of IT support, so we'd probably want to delegate the control of resetting passwords over the sales, marketing, and management OUs to him. For this example, we will delegate control over to the sales OU to Philip. To delegate control over an OU, you can right-click it and select Delegate Control. So on sales, I'm going to right-click and delegate control. I get a wizard. I'm going to select Next. This should open a new window where you will first be asked for the users to whom you want to delegate control. Note, to avoid mistyping the user's name, write Philip and click the Check Names button. Windows will autocomplete the user for you. So I need to click Add, type in Philip, check name, hit OK, and I've got Philip added. Click OK, and on the next step, select the following option. Next, reset user passwords, and force password changes at next login. And I'm going to hit Next. Click Next a couple of times, and now Philip should be able to reset passwords for any user of the sales department. While you'd probably want to repeat these steps to delegate the password resets of the marketing and management departments, we'll leave it here for this task. You are free to continue to configure the rest of the OUs if you desire. I'm just going to finish this. Now let's use Philip's account to try and reset Sophie's password. Here are Philip's credentials for you to log in via RDP. So I'm just going to jump in here. Hit Control-C to end my RDP session and log in as Philip. Just put in his credentials here to authenticate. The password is clear 2008. Note, when connecting via RDP, okay, I've already connected, so on to the next thing. While you may be tempted to go to Active Directory users and computers to try and test Philip's new powers, he doesn't really have the privileges to open it. So you'll have to use other methods to do a password reset. In this case, we'll be using PowerShell to do so. So I'm going to open up PowerShell. Run that, and then we have a PowerShell command here. Copy. Throw that in. So the PowerShell command is to set AD account password for Sophie, reset, new password, read host, a secure string, and a prompt for a new password, and it's verbose. I'm gonna hit enter on that. For the new password, I'm gonna use password 123. Enter. Since we wouldn't want Sophie to keep on using the password that we know, we can also force a password reset at the next login with the following command. So I'm going to grab this command. Throw that in. This is going to set AD user, change password at login, $true, identity Sophie, verbose. Okay. And that was successful. Now I need to log into Sophie's account with your new password and retrieve a flag from Sophie's desktop. So I'm going to jump back into my RDP session, Control C to end it. And I'm just going to throw in Sophie's credentials. And I said it was going to be password 123. The user's password must be changed before signing in. I'll hit OK. And put in the password. And the new password is going to be password 321, which is a password that Tryhackme uses a lot. So I'm just going to put that in. Make sure that matches. Password has been changed. And I've authenticated. I am on the desktop and I have a flag. Answer the question below. What was the flag found on Sophie's desktop? That's right here. I'm going to grab it. And some batch menu came up. Not what I want. Grab this, throw it in, check. And the next question is the process of granting privileges to a user over some OUs or other AD objects is called. That was delegation. Put that in. All right, on to task 5, managing computers in AD. And for this, I don't think I need Sophie's account anymore, so I'm just going to switch back over really quick before I move on. Sign back into the administrator. By default, all the machines that join a domain, except for the DCs, will be put into the containers called computers. If we check our DC, we will see that some of the devices are already there. And we can see those here. We can see some servers, some laptops, and some PCs corresponding to the users in our network. Having all of our devices there is not the best idea, since it's very likely that you have different policies for your servers and the machines that regular users are using on a daily basis. While there is no golden rule on how to organize your machines, an excellent starting point is segregating devices according to their use. In general, you'd expect to see devices divided into at least 3 of the following categories: workstations, servers, and domain controllers. Workstations are one of the most common devices within an Active Directory domain. Each user in the domain will likely be logging into a workstation. This is the device they will do their work on or normal browsing activities. These devices should never have a privileged user signed into them. Servers are the second most common device within an Active Directory domain. Servers are generally used to provide services to users or other servers. And domain controllers are the third most common device within an Active Directory domain. Domain controllers allow you to manage the Active Directory domain. These devices are often deemed the most sensitive devices within the network as they contain hashed passwords for all users' accounts within the environment. Since we are tidying up our AD, let's create 2 separate OUs for workstations and servers. Domain controllers are already in an OU created by Windows. We will be creating them directly under the thm.local domain container. In the end, you should have the following OU structure. So I'm just going to highlight THM, right click, go to new organizational unit, and I want workstations. And then I'm going to do it again, and I want servers. Okay. Now move the personal computers and laptops to the workstations OU and the servers to the servers OU from the computers container. Doing so will allow us to configure policies for each OU later. So from computers, I'm going to hold shift. I'll click the first one, hold shift, go all the way down to the last PC. I'm just going to drag these to my workstations and say yes. And then I'm going to grab all my servers, hold shift, and then grab the mouse and just pull them all down to servers, put them in there. So 3 servers and a bunch of workstations. Answer the questions below. After organizing the available computers, how many ended up in the workstations OU? I'm counting 7. Check it. Is it recommended to create separate OUs for servers and workstations? Yay or nay? And since we just did this and read all of that, it told us to do that. We're going to say yay. And with that done, I'm going to move on to Task 6, Group Policies. So far, we have organized users and computers in OUs just for the sake of it, but the main idea behind this is to be able to deploy different policies for each OU individually. That way, we can push different configurations and security baselines to users depending on their department. Windows manages such policies through Group Policy Objects, GPO. GPOs are simply a collection of settings that can be applied to OUs. GPOs can contain policies aimed at either users or computers, allowing you to set a baseline on specific machines and identities. To configure GPOs, you can use the Group Policy Management tool available from the Start menu. Go ahead and open that up. The first thing you will see when opening it is your complete OU hierarchy as defined before. To configure group policies, you first create a GPO under Group Policy Objects, and then link it to the OU where you want the policies to apply. As an example, you can see that there are some already existing GPOs in your machine. And under THM Local, we've got a couple. And under Group Policy Objects, we've got a couple. We can see in the image above, 3 GPOs have been created. From those, the default domain policy and RDP policy are linked to the THM local domain as a whole, and the default domain controller policy is linked to the domain controller's OU only. So to see that, I think if we just click on these, don't show this again, we could see where they are linked. RDP policy, and we could just cycle through these. Something important to have in mind is that GPOs will apply to the linked OU and any sub-OUs under it. For example, the sales OU will still be affected by the default domain policy. Let's examine the domain policy to see what's inside a GPO. Default domain policy, which is where the GPO is linked in the AD. For the current policy, we can see that it has only been linked to the thm.local domain, which yeah, we could see that it's actually in the location, authenticated users. As you can see, you can also apply security filtering in GPOs so that they are only applied to specific users' computers under an OU. By default, they will apply to the authenticated users group, which includes all users and PCs. That's right here. The Settings tab includes the actual content of the GPO and lets us know what specific configurations it applies. As stated before, each GPO has its configurations that apply to computers only and configurations that apply to users only. In this case, the default domain policy only contains computer configurations. We go to Settings, it's going to generate a report. And we can see computer configurations is enabled. Okay. And then it looks like they expand on the security settings here. Feel free to explore the GPO and expand on the available items using the show links on the right side of each configuration. In this case, the default domain policy indicates really basic configurations that should apply to most domains, including passwords and account lockout policies. Since the GPO applies to the whole domain, any changes to it would affect all computers. Let's change the minimum password length policy to require users to have at least 10 characters in their password. To do this, right-click on the GPO and select Edit. So if I go to default domain policy and I right click, so that policy first, let's look at it. It's account policies, password lockout policy. Right here, no, right above it. Okay, so it's set to 7 characters. So I want to right click, I want to go to edit. This will open a new window where we can navigate and edit all the available configurations. To change the minimum password length, go to we want computer configuration, policies, drop that down, Windows settings, drop that down, security settings, account policies, this one here, I'm gonna drop that down, just gonna make this big. Yeah, for some reason I can't grab it. And then I want the account policies, password policy. And this one right here, minimum password length, I'm gonna double click it, change this to 10. Doesn't tell me anything else, so I'm gonna hit OK. The system cannot find the file specified, it failed to save. Okay. It looks like it updated it though, but I'm not sure. As you can see, plenty of the policies can be established in a GPO. While explaining every single one of them would be impossible in a single room, do feel free to explore a bit as some of the policies are straightforward. If more information on any of the policies is needed, you can double click them and read the Explain tab on each of them. So if I double click this, oh, here's the Explain tab. Okay. Makes sense. I get the error again. Sure. And then we've got GPO Distribution. GPOs are distributed to the network via a network share called sysvol, which is stored in the DC. All users in a domain should typically have access to the share over the network to sync their GPOs periodically. The sysvol share points to the default C, Windows, sysvol directory on each of the DCs in our network. Once a change has been made to any GPOs, it might take up to 2 hours for computers to catch up. If you want to force any particular computer to sync its GPOs immediately, you can always run the following command on the desired computer, gpupdate /force. I'm just going to grab it and go ahead and run it in PowerShell to show you. Throw that in and see what it does. And it's updating the policies. And that's successful. Creating some GPOs for THM Inc. As part of our new job, we've been tasked with implementing some GPOs to allow us to block non-IT users from accessing the control panel and make workstations and servers lock their screens automatically after 5 minutes of user inactivity to avoid people leaving their sessions exposed. Let's focus on each of these and define what policies we should enable in each GPO and where they should be linked. Restrict access to the control panel. We want to restrict access to the control panel across all machines to only the users that are part of the IT department. Users of other departments shouldn't be able to change the system's preferences. Let's create a new GPO called Restrict Control Panel Access and open it for editing. Since we want this GPO to apply to specific users, we will look under the user configurations for the following policies. Notice we have enabled the prohibited access to the control panel and PC settings policy. Once the GPO is configured, we will need to link it. Okay, so first I need to create a GPO. And I don't want to do it in here because I'm editing one. So for group policy objects, I'm going to right click, go to new, and I want to create restrict access to the control panel. Hit OK. Once the GPO is configured, we will need to link all the OUs corresponding to users who shouldn't have access to the control panel of their PCs. In this case, we will link it to marketing, management, and sales OUs by dragging the GPO to all of them. So first I need to right-click on it and edit. And this should be under user configurations, policies. I'm going to make this full screen. Administrative templates. Control panel. Just highlight it. Okay, so here it is, and I can see prohibit access is not enabled. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to enable it. Apply and OK. And it doesn't. So next I need to then close this. And I need to assign it to marketing, management, and sales. So I'm going to grab it. I'm going to open up THM and just drag it onto sales. Hit OK. Marketing. And finally, management. And that's it. I've assigned that GPO to those as instructed. Next, I'm going to do auto lock screen GPO. For the first GPO regarding screen locking for workstations and servers, we could directly apply it over the workstation servers and domain controllers, OUs, we created previously. While this solution should work, an alternate consists of simply applying the GPO to the root domain, as we want the GPO to affect all of our computers since the workstation servers and domain controllers, OU, are all child OUs of the root domain. They will inherit its policies. Note, you might notice that if our GPO is applied to the root domain, it will also be inherited by other OUs like sales or marketing. Since these OUs contain users only, any computer configuration in the GPO will be ignored by them. Let's create a new GPO, call it auto lock screen, and edit it. The policy to achieve what we want is located in the following route. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new policy. I'm gonna name this one auto lock screen. Make sure our scope. And this should be, I'm going to go to edit. Showing me under policies, Windows settings, security settings. I'll just make this full screen again. Local policies, security options, interactive. Can I just type? Okay, here it is, not defined. Double click it. We will set the inactivity limit to 5 minutes so that computers get locked automatically if any user leaves their session open. After closing the GPO editor, we will link the GPO to the root domain by dragging the GPO to it. So I'm going to click, went away. So I want machine inactivity limit. I'll double click it, define this policy, and set it to 300 seconds. Hit apply and OK. And it's set. And now I should be able to close out of this screen, and I must close all dialog boxes. Do I have one open? Oh, yeah, I don't need that open. 300 seconds, close this. Now it's showing that I should be able to drag it right under THM local. Hit OK, and there it is. Okay. Once the GPOs have been applied to the current OUs, we can log in as any users in either marketing, sales, or management for verification. For this task, let's connect via RDP using Mark's credentials. I'm going to copy his password and drop out of my RDP session. Put Mark's password in here with Control-Shift-V. User Mark. If we try opening the control panel, we should get a message indicating this operation is denied by the administrator. You can also wait 5 minutes to check if the screen is automatically locked if you want. Since we didn't apply the control panel GPO on IT, you should still be able to log in any machine as any of the users and access the control panel. Note, if you created and linked the GPOs, but for some reason they still don't work, remember you can run gp update /force to force GPOs to be updated. And I don't know what happened there, but let's see if we can go to the control panel. And I get the restricted message, which is what I expected since I set the GPO. I did think I might have to run GP update, but I guess not. Okay, so that worked. Answer the questions below. What is the name of the network shares used to distribute GPOs to domain machines? And that was something sysvol. I'm going to grab that. Put that in here. Can a GPO be used to apply settings to users and computers? Yay or nay? And that is yay, as we read. All right, and on to task 7, authentication methods. And I don't think I'm going to need my RDP session for these, so I'm just going to go back to full screen to finish. I probably could just jump out of here. And continue reading. When using Windows domains, all credentials are stored in the domain controllers. Whenever a user tries to authenticate to a service using domain credentials, the service will need to ask the domain controller to verify if they are correct. 2 protocols can be used for network authentication in Windows domains. Kerberos, used by any recent version of Windows. This is the default protocol in any recent domain. And NetNTLM, legacy authentication protocol kept for compatibility purposes. While NetNTLM should be considered obsolete, most networks will have both protocols enabled. Let's take a deeper look at how each of these protocols works. First, we have Kerberos Authentication. Kerberos Authentication is the default authentication protocol for any recent version of Windows. Users who log into a service using Kerberos will be assigned tickets. Think of tickets as proof of previous authentication. Users with tickets can present them to a service to demonstrate that they have already authenticated into the network before and are therefore enabled to use it. When Kerberos is used for authentication, the following process happens. 1. The user sends their username and a timestamp encrypted using a key derived from their password to the Key Distribution Center KDC, a service usually installed on the domain controller in charge of creating Kerberos tickets on the network. The KDC will create and send back a ticket granting ticket TGT, which will allow the user to request additional tickets to access specific services. The need for a ticket to get more tickets may sound a bit weird, but it allows users to request service tickets without passing their credentials every time they want to connect to a service. Along with the TGT, a session key is given to the user, which they will need to generate the following requests. Notice the TGT is encrypted using the KRB TGT account's password hash, and therefore the user can't access its contents. It is essential to know that the encrypted TGT includes a copy of the session key as part of its contents, and the KDC has no need to store the session key, as it can recover a copy by decrypting the TGT if needed. Number 1, when a user wants to connect to a service on the network like a share, website, or database, they will use their TGT to ask the KDC for a ticket granting service, TGS. TGS are tickets that allow connections only to specific services they were created for. To request a TGS, the user will send their username and a timestamp encrypted using the session key, along with the TGT and a service principal name, SPN, which indicates the service and server name we intend to access. As a result, the KDC will send us a TGS along with a service session key, which we will need to authenticate to the service we want to access. The TGS is encrypted using a key derived from the service owner hash. The service owner is the user on the machine account that the service runs under. The TGS contains a copy of the service key on its encrypted contents so that the service owner can access it by decrypting the TGS. The TGS can then be sent to a desired service to authenticate and establish a connection. The service will use its configured account's password hash to decrypt the TGS and validate the service session key. NetNTLM Authentication. NetNTLM works using a challenge response mechanism. The entire process is as follows, and we could see it's kind of number 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have them right here. Number 1 is the client sends an authentication request to the server they want to access. Number 2, the server generates a random number and sends it as a challenge to the client. Number 3, the client combines their NTLM password hash with the challenge and other known data to generate a response to the challenge and sends it back to the server for verification. Number 4, the server forwards the challenge and the response to the domain controller for verification. Number 5, the domain controller uses the challenge to recalculate the response and compare it to its original response sent by the client. If they both match, the client is authenticated. Otherwise, access is denied. The authentication result is sent back to the server. And number 6, the server forwards the authentication result to the client. Note that the user's password or hash is never transmitted through the network for security. Note, the described process applies when using a domain account. If a local account is used, the server can verify the response to the challenge itself without requiring interaction with the domain controller since it has the password hash stored locally on its SAM. Answer the questions below. Will the current version of Windows use NetNTLM as the preferred authentication protocol by default, yay or nay? And we read that at the very top that it said it would not, so I'm going to say nay. When referring to Kerberos, what type of ticket allows us to request further tickets known as TGS? And this was, I believe, ticket granting ticket. Right here. Throw that in and check it. When using NetNTLM, is a user's password transmitted over the network at any point, yay or nay? And that actually told us that it was not. Authentication result sent back to the server. Where does it say that? Response sent back to the server. Authentication, that's what challenges. Entire process. And I think just looking through here, we could see that it's not, but I remember reading it wasn't, and I don't remember exactly where. Yeah, I'm going to say nay. Or at least I remember here the challenge is sent back. The client combines NTLM password hash with the challenge, responds to the challenge, and sends it back to the server for verification. So it sends the hash, but never the password. Okay. On to task 8, trees, forests, and trusts. So far, we have discussed how to manage a single domain, the role of a domain controller, and how it joins computers, servers, and users. As companies grow, so do their networks. Having a single domain for a company is good enough to start, but in time some additional needs might push you into having more than one. Trees. Imagine, for example, that suddenly your company expands to a new country. The new country has different laws and regulations that require you to update your GPOs to comply. In addition, you now have IT people in both countries, and each IT team needs to manage the resources that correspond to each country without interfering with the other team. While you could create a complete OU structure and use delegations to achieve this, having a huge AD structure might be hard to manage and prone to human error. Lucky for us, Active Directory supports integrating multiple domains so that you can partition your network into units that can be managed independently. If you have two domains that share the same namespace, THM.local, for example, those domains can be joined in a tree. If our thm.local domain was split into subdomains for UK and US branches, you could build a tree with a root domain of thm.local and two subdomains with UK.thm.local and US.thm.local, each with its AD, computers, and users. This partition structure gives us better control over who can access what in the domain. The IT people from the UK will have their own DC that manages UK resources only. For example, a UK user would not be able to manage US users. And that way, the domain administrators of each branch will have complete control over their respective DCs, but not other branches' DCs. Policies can be configured independently for each domain in the tree. A new security group needs to be introduced when talking about trees and forests. The Enterprise Admins group will grant a user administrative privileges over all of an enterprise's domains. Each domain will still have its domain admins with administrative privileges over their single domains and the enterprise admins who can control everything in the enterprise. Forests. The domains you manage can also be configured in different namespaces. Suppose your company continues growing and eventually acquires another company called MHT Inc. When both companies merge, you will be able to have different domain trees for each company, each managed by its own IT department. The union of several trees with different namespaces into the same network is known as a forest. Trust relationships. Having multiple domains organized in trees and forests allows you to have a nice compartmentalized network in terms of management and resources. But at a certain point, a user at THM UK might need access to a shared file in one of the MHT Asia servers. For this to happen, domains arranged in trees and forests are joined together by trust relationships. In simple terms, having trust relationships between domains allows you to authorize a user from the domain THM UK to access resources from domain MHT EU. The simplest trust relationships that can be established is a one-way trust relationship. In a one-way trust, if domain AAA trusts domain BBB, this means that a user on BBB can be authorized to access resources on AAA. The direction of the one-way trust relationship is contrary to that of the access direction. Two-way trust relationships can also be made to allow both domains to mutually authorize users from the other. By default, joining several domains under a tree or a forest will form a two-way trust relationship. It is important to note that being in a trust relationship between domains doesn't automatically grant access to all resources on other domains. Once a trust relationship is established, you have the chance to authorize users across different domains, but it's up to you what is actually authorized or not. Answer the questions below. What is the group of Windows domains that share the same namespace called? And that's going to be a tree or trees. Trees share the same namespace. What should be configured between two domains for a user in domain A to access a resource in domain B? And that's going to be a trust relationship. I think we want a trust relationship. Check it. Task 9 is the conclusion. In this room, we have shown the basic components and concepts related to Active Directories and Windows domains. Keep in mind that this room should only serve as an introduction to the basic concepts, as there's quite a bit more to explore to implement a production-ready Active Directory environment. If you are interested in learning how to secure an Active Directory installation, be sure to check out the Active Directory hardening room. If, on the other hand, you'd like to know how attackers can take advantage of common AD misconfigurations and other AD hacking techniques, the Compromising Active Directory module is the way to go. Answer the question below. This is a read check. I'm definitely going to check out these rooms probably once I finish the learning path, but check that. All right, and I've finished the room. Scroll down to see your progress. Just going to go back to my dashboard. And I've got a couple more to go. I still have to do breaching Active Directory. I'll redo some of these Kerberos ones that I haven't done in a while. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.